Hi everybody, today I'm going to work on a dragon journal. I've already started to make the cover and I just thought I'd turn the camera on and show you because I'm really happy with how it came out. I started with just 2 digital prints and a piece of fabric. And then I used a white glue to adhere the digital to the fabric and let it dry, and flipped it over and did the same with the other piece, and I just sort of lined the edges up as best I could. And then when it was all completely dry, I used 2 different products. I used Mod Podge on this side, and I don't know if the camera will pick it up, but you can see some faint lines from the brush strokes on the Mod Podge, which I couldn't get rid of and wasn't terribly happy with, but I'm going to use some sandpaper and rough that up a bit, which will age it a bit more. But on this side I'm really happy. I'll try and get the camera to pick that angle up, but it's come out like leather and it feels like leather. You can actually screw this up and it doesn't tear the paper at all, the way that it's been sealed, and flatten it out again, which makes it look really vintage and aged, which I really love. And then what I've done with the edging is I've just pulled some threads off. I've trimmed it crookedly, so I've shown you this is kind of the finished edge. This edge here I've just done a rough cut and started to fray, and then I thought I'd show you, so this was the unfinished edge here. I thought I'd show you just the process was really just to get some scissors and just sort of rough cut and pull fabric away. So I don't want it to be straight, and just sort of get some nice sharp scissors and pull the edges away. And then once you get to that stage, you fray the edges a little bit where you can. So just fray, pull the threads out, and then to get this look is just really just take the scissors and snip odd little bits out. Try not to be too even, and snip between, and really just to distress, pull the fabric apart and distress it and pull more threads out where you can. So I won't go through and show you any more of that, but that's what I'm starting with. Then I've grabbed some aged, these are just a range of different papers, and it's all just been tea dyed, and I've stained it. I have got one piece in here which is one of the trifold pullouts with the dragon image on it, so I've put that in there, so that gives me something that's a little bit more finished. And I'm just going to start decorating this. I figured that would be probably enough for this journal as a starting point. So I'm going to, now that I've shown you the cover and how malleable it is, I'm going to just use some, this is some embroidery thread, and I'm going to stitch this signature in. So I'm only going to have the one signature, but then I'm going to add a whole lot of tip-ins and flips and images to the journal. Because it's an aged product, I've actually played around and made some sticky tape. This is just a piece of baking paper, sticky tape with alcohol inks. I've got a whole selection of maps and music paper and graph paper and paper in different languages, which I will use to add some interesting stuff to it. I found some packaging, just some brown paper packaging that something came wrapped in, and I've printed a few digitals just from the Dragons kit. I've printed these coins and already cut some of them out. They can be page tabs, but they would make great things to decorate. Some journal cards, they'd make great tip-ins. There's a few dragons pictures and images. So I thought I'll get started and just show you that process of what I'm going to do. A lot of people stress out about sewing in the signatures, so I'm just going to show you my process. I've just got a bit of scrap paper. I've folded it in half and made it the same height as the signature's going to be. Then I get my signatures in order and line them up the way that I want them to be. Make sure everything's the right way up and try and center things where I can. And then based on what you're putting in, because I've got different sized papers going in this, I will probably make, I think I'll get away with 3 holes. There's nothing particularly, that one will get caught up in there. So I'm just going to use 3 holes. So all I do for that is this. I take my scrap piece of paper and I fold it in half to find the center, and that's my center piece. That's where my middle hole is going to be. So when I punch that, that's my middle hole. And then I just find a distance from the top and the bottom, whatever that might be. So if it's there, I'll just fold that there, and then fold the other one to match, so that I've got the same top to bottom. So I don't mess around with rulers or anything. So now I've got my second hole there and my third hole there, and that's all I ever do. If I'm doing 5 holes, then what I do is just fold this up to a certain point, sort of halfway between those two. So if I wanted 5 holes, there's my, just fold that in half again, and that would be where my 5th hole was. But I think 3 will be plenty for this one. So then just tuck that inside the center, and poke your holes in there. Now the only thing I do is I just use some clips, bulldog clips or a paper clip, just to keep everything, especially when it's this sort of paper's really aged and flimsy. So I'll just clip a few things together just to make sure things don't move. So I'll clip opposite ends first, and that just keeps things nice and snug, and you can put a couple of extra clips on if you need. But I don't want this to be too perfect because I want it to have a really aged look. I just line my template up and then poke my holes through. And then with my cover, now that I've got the tatty edges, so I just want to sort of find my cover and find the center point. And sit this inside. Make sure I've got that even from top to bottom. And just squash that all in, make sure I'm happy with it. And then I poke the holes in the cover as I'm stitching it in. So if I want my thread to be on the outside, I would make my center hole and start from the outside, but I'm going to have threads on the inside. So I'm just going to go through everything all at once and make my hole on the outside. I'm going to hold that thread with my thumb just to keep it where I want it to be. Now to make my because I want to make the hole from the outside, I just sort of poke the needle through and make the hole, so make sure everything stayed lined up. Poke my needle through and make the hole on the outside, but don't push the needle through. Okay, so now I've found the hole on the outside. I can flip it over and go through that hole. And then through the signatures. And again, because this is so malleable, just make sure that's all lined up. And then go back through that hole I've made. And just start that hole off. I'm just going to make sure I'm happy with that. Yep, poke that through. Keeping this thread pulled up, make sure everything's nice and tight, and go back through that hole. By pulling the thread up, it just means that I've made a little bit of space to put the needle through without it catching and splitting the embroidery thread. Now because this is a soft cover, I want that to be nice and tight, but not, I don't want it to be too tight to bend it. So I'm just going to tie that off. That's nice and tight, and then just do my double knot and get rid of that. So that's my journal stitched in, my signature stitched in. And now I really like the feel of it. It's a really nice aged feeling. So now I can start to decorate with all of my different bits and pieces of paper. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to go through and use some of these papers and envelopes to make things that tip in and flip up and flip out. And I'll use some of these images to add in, make journal cards and tuck in and so on. And I will come back and show you my progress. I'll use the vintage tape too, just as a decoration really, to give it that aged look as well. So I've made some good progress with this journal. It's not exactly finished, but getting close to it. I've just put some fibre on the outside of it. I don't know whether that's going to be how I close it. And I'll just show you what I've added to the journal. I really have only just used the things I showed you at the beginning. So I've made that pocket. I've used some of the vintage tape that I made, and that's just one of the journal cards in there. I've used some old envelopes. So I've made a flip out there with an old envelope. There's one of the cards there, tucked in there, and there's just some graph paper and another journal card tucked into that pocket. This pocket closes just by tucking it under that circle, And when you flip it over, the window looks at the other side of the tag. So that tag's visible through that window, and this is visible through the back window. So that's that bit. When you open that page up, there's a large journal card tucked into, again, another envelope with just some book page and one of the bookmarks. And when you flip that down, there's a pocket underneath with just some graph paper that's in there. And I haven't yet decorated that back of that one. So that's that page. Just tucked a little envelope, and that's just got a piece of notepaper in it there. One of the journal cards on there. Here's another window pocket envelope with just a journal card there that tucks in, and then that flips out, and there can be more decoration on that page. I can also flip that way if I like, but I'm just going to leave it that way. I've just added some notepaper here. That's some of the faux vintage tape. Just added a little decoration on the edge of that. I popped a journal card on the back of this envelope, and there's another journal card in there with some notepaper. Again, I could add some decoration there. This little pocket's just got a journal card and a file folder tucked in it. I just added a little swivel closure for this is the trifold, with a bit of notepaper there, a couple of pockets there, another piece of the dragon trifold paper in that pocket, and another just piece of tea-dyed paper, and that folds that way. And then when you pull it this way, there's a journal card and some tickets in there. Just added a little piece of the Japanese writing paper, some of the vintage tape. This one I've just added just a piece of notepaper that folds out, and I'm just a paper clip just to keep that closed. More of the vintage tape, and this is just a piece of notepaper that tucks in there. I've made a little notepad there that tucks in there. This isn't one of the envelopes, and I've just made a little journal card to tuck in there. That could do with some extra decoration. Some more of the vintage tape. I haven't figured that page out yet. I've just put a little tab there. This is just a belly band with just a piece of tri-folded notepaper tucked in there. Everything's been inked. It's just some of the packaging paper. This one's got just some scrapbook paper and one of the journal cards. And that's it. And even though there's no spine to speak of, because it's a soft cover, it just sits really nicely. And then I've just wrapped this fibre around it for the moment, and I'll think about whether I want that to be the permanent closure or not. So that's where we're at. If you have any more ideas about ways to decorate the journal, I'd love you to tell me in the comments, especially if you've got a good idea for doing something special with the closure. But I'm really happy with how it's worked out, and I particularly love the I will definitely do that finish again where it gives that leather look. So yeah, thanks for having a look, and I hope you have a go at making something similar.